Lesson 77 has two parts. The first part is on consecutive odd and even integers, and then we'll be working some more with fraction and decimal word problems. Now, when we talk about consecutive odd and even integers, we'll be doing word problems just like in Lesson 76 when we're working with consecutive integers. Now, there's something to keep in mind here that is a little bit tricky. Let's just write down some consecutive even integers. 2, 4, 6, and 8. Let's write down some odd ones as well. 1, 3, 5, and 7. Now, if we were going to describe consecutive even or odd integers using variables, let's just think about the even ones. We would say n for the first one, and then the next one after that is 2 away, right? So we'd say n plus 2. And then the third one is 4 away from the first one, so we'd say n plus 4. And then that last one is 6 away from the first one, so we'd say n plus 6. So consecutive even integers are 2 apart. Well, odd ones are too, and don't get confused on that. A lot of times people want to write n, and then n plus 1, and then n plus 3. Well, that doesn't work. Look at the 1 and the 3. They're 2 apart. 5 is 4 from 1. 7 is 6 from 1. So whether they're even or odd, you have to use the same setup. n plus 2, n plus 4, and n plus 6. It's just one of those things that makes you think. If you don't think hard, or just maybe even a little bit about this problem, you don't necessarily have to think hard, then you're going to get confused when you have a consecutive integer problem dealing with just odd integers. Let's go ahead and do a practice problem. Find 3 consecutive odd integers such that the sum of the first and the second equals the third plus 27. So let's just write down our consecutive odd integers first. And think about it. We have n, and they're going to be 2 apart, so the next one would be plus 2, n plus 2, and then n plus 4. So they're always 2 apart, whether they're even or odd. So find 3 consecutive odd integers such that the sum of the first and the second, so we would add n plus 2, equals, so there's our equal sign, the third plus 27. So the third integer is n plus 4 plus 27. Let's go ahead and simplify on both sides. We can add some like terms. 2n plus 2 is equal to n plus 31. Now let's go ahead and move n just to the left side. So we'll add a negative n to both sides. And let's go ahead and move the constant over to the right. So we'll have to add a negative 2 to both sides. The 2's cancel on the left, the n's on the right, and we end up with n equals 29. Now remember, on these consecutive integer problems, that is not our answer. Our answer is the 3 consecutive integers that result. 29 is one of them. 31 and 33 are the other 2. And so there is our answer. 29, 31, 33. Part B of this lesson is on fraction and decimal word problems. Now back in lesson 58, we talked about percent word problems. A percent is a fraction, right? We just use a little bit different symbol to describe it, but it's always a value over 100. So it's a fraction. So these problems will be similar to those percent word problems. When we have a fraction word problem, it'll be a good idea to use our formula f times of equals is to help us think about how to solve the problem and how to set it up. And then for decimal word problems, we'll just use d for decimal. D times of equals is. Let's just go ahead and do a problem. The outfielder threw the ball from the fence towards home plate, but the ball only made it 7/8 of the way there. If the ball traveled 280 feet, what was the actual distance from the fence to home plate? Well, we can tell we have a fraction problem here because we have 7/8 of the way. So let's just go ahead and set up our formula. F times of equals is. Okay, so it made it 7/8 of the way, and it traveled 280 feet. So that's what 7/8 equals, right? Is 280 feet. So we could say 7/8 times what number is equal to 280. We could think about it with a diagram too if we wanted to. So here's a diagram, and let's break it into 1/8 and 7/8. 7/8 is 280. So to get the whole distance there, we need that extra 1/8, so we'll need a little bit more. All we need to do now is multiply both sides by 8/7. And everything cancels on the left. 280/7, that would be the same thing as 40/1. And so then we can just do 40 times 8, that equals 320. And so our unknown value is 320 feet. That's the actual distance from the fence to home plate. So these problems are real similar to fraction and decimal problems you've been doing before. They just basically have more words in them, and you just have to think a little bit more how to decipher them. Use that formula, F times of equals is. Use a diagram too if that helps you. Let's do one more problem. Let's just read it through first. It says that they guessed that the truck needed 21.56 gallons of gas, but this was actually 1.4 times more than it needed. How much gas did the truck actually need? Well, we see we're working with decimals here, so let's just set up our decimal formula. D times of equals is. Now we're told that we were given 1.4 times more gas than actually needed. So our decimal is 1.4 because we're saying 1.4 times something equals is, or equals a total. Now they guessed too much gas. So 1.4 times what? That's how much we're trying to figure out. How much did they actually need? 1.4 times what number is 21.56? Because the guess was too high. Let's just think about this in a diagram. Here's the guess, 21.56. That's actually 1.4. So an amount that would equal just one whole, or 1, that would be part of that. So it'll be less than 21.56. So we need to divide both sides by 1.4. And that cancels on the left, and we can just use our calculator. 21.56 divided by 1.4, that equals 15.4. So that's how much gas was actually needed, is 15.4 gallons. We don't have to write the units down on this, but it doesn't hurt to do it. It's just a good idea to write units whenever you have them. So we were trying to figure out the amount actually needed there. The guess was too high. It was 1.4 times too high. And so that makes sense that the actual amount was less. Drawing the diagram helped us to visualize that the actual amount would be less than 21.56 as well. Okay, well that's all for lesson 77.